Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Daily Racing Form handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will handicap 3 races from the Stars and Stripes Saturday extravaganza at Belmont. The Grade 1 $1.2 million Belmont Derby Invitational for colts on the turf. The Grade 1 Belmont Oaks Invitational. $1 million is the purse for fillies on the turf. We also have a Breeders' Cup win in your in race for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. That's the Grade 2 Belmont Sprint Championship preview. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment focuses on an intriguing group of 2-year-olds to open up the afternoon at Belmont Park. David Aragona's Timeform U.S. Spotlight focuses on 3 major stakes races, races 8 through 10 at Belmont on Saturday. Plus JK's Play of the Day, Peter Thomas Fornatel's Tournament Talk, horses to watch, best bets, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Matt Graham Motion has Lady Alexandra breathing fire.
Yeah, she was awesome, I thought, as a runner-up most recently in the Highlander at Woodbine. We're going to take a look at that. This was from last weekend. I've got to be honest, the way this race was run, pace just basically fell apart, and you see her right there. She's taking over now. Keep in mind, Woodbine, the stretch goes on forever and a day, and she's going to get run down by a really, really strong horse and long on value. To me, I look at this performance from Lady Alexandra. She earns a 103 Beyer speed figure. She's proven that she can handle the males. I kind of look at it and say, you know what? We're going to be going 5 or 5.5 furlongs in the turf sprint for the Breeders' Cup this year at Churchill Downs. With this kind of tactical speed, I think all of a sudden Lady Alexandra's interesting.
Wouldn't be surprised to see her at Saratoga. She is a turf sprinter with a future. Mike Beer, tell me a little bit about this La Moneda.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with La Moneda. She's a New York bred mare, 5 years old, very lightly raced, though. She's won 4 of her last 5 on turf. Illman, you and I watched her win the opener on Belmont Stakes Day against New York breds, closing down a loose on the lead pace setter in that race. A really nice performance. This was her next start. Had to step up into open company in this race. The step up in class was no problem for her. I mean, she just cruises home in this field. 133 flat, a couple of ticks faster than the Perfect Sting Stakes that was run 2 races later on the same card at the same distance. Really impressive win. She just looks like a mare right now. You're going to see her in some of these New York bred stakes races up at Saratoga, and don't be surprised if she's tough to beat.
This is a very exciting prospect who's going to be stepping up in class and I think can handle the rise without any sort of issue. My horse watch was supposed to be a best bet last week. That was Lift Up in the Eatontown Stakes. Michael Dickinson decided, well, we're going to scratch out of the Eatontown. We're going to wait for Monday's Dr. James Penny Memorial at Parks. It's very hot in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. They didn't run at Parks on Monday. Lift Up hasn't had a chance to run. She's now a horse watch. I'm looking forward to where she runs next because of this performance at Monmouth, her most recent start. She is in behind horses right now, and it looks like she is in some big trouble because there is absolutely no way to go. She's going to ease to the outside, and it looks like she's got some work to do after running sideways, but the jock doesn't get too excited. Just a strong hand ride. She engulfs Viva Vegas, a decent turf horse in her own right, to win going away. This filly is now 5 for 5 in her career on the turf. She was a late foal, a June foal. It looks like the trainer Michael Dickinson has taken his time with this horse. She is on a roll right now. She is a little bit slow on figs. The best buyer somewhere around the mid-80s, but I think she is ready to step up against graded stakes competition, maybe in the Mid-Atlantic region, and I think she'll be a decent number wherever she shows up. That's Lift Up. 3 horses from us this week to put on your DRF Horse Watch on DRF.com. Let's get to some handicapping. The Belmont Derby is the DRF Bet Saturday Race of the Day. Let's take a look at the field for Saturday's DRF Bets Race of the Day, the Grade 1 $1.2 million Belmont Derby Invitational for 3-year-olds going 1.25 miles on the inner turf. For expanded stakes previews of many of the graded stakes races all weekend long, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. They'll be up by Friday afternoon. This is an intriguing field and distance is key. Mike, Europeans have no problem with the distance, and you're looking with the horse that's very upwardly mobile in Kingstar.
Yeah, it feels like if the Europeans have any advantage in this race, it is the distance of the race. They are facing some really talented stateside runners, but I think with the stateside runners, you have to at least be a little concerned about how far they want to go. I didn't have those concerns with the 2 Europeans, and I ultimately decided with the bigger price of the 2, the number 6 Kingstar. This horse is very lightly raced, only 3 career starts, 2 last year. year as a 2-year-old, came off the layoff for Team Valor on June 2nd. This is the first and only start this horse has made as a 3-year-old. I'm going to look at the replay right now. This is a 1 5/16 miles off the layoff. This horse had a nice trip, and there was a little head struggle. He looked a little fresh off the layoff, but they got him to settle off the pace. I don't know, guys. To me, this is about as easy as you could win a race. I don't know what he was beating here. I'm sure he is facing a much tougher group of horses on Saturday, but this is a very impressive win for a lightly raced colt who looks like he has a ton of upside. I like this performance for him. I'm taking a shot with him on Saturday.
Third horse in this race came back to place in a Group 2. The runner-up came back to win a conditions race, so the form has been flattered somewhat, but it is a big step up in class. Matt, a couple of horses in this race are so versatile. Dirt, turf. One of them, Catholic Boy, is going to take a lot of money. My Boy Jack, on the other hand, is probably going to be a better price, and he's got a big kick. He was making up a lot of ground at 1 1/4 miles in the Derby last time out.
Yeah, and to be honest, I kind of feel like this might actually be what he's wanted all along, getting back to the lawn. It's been quite some time since he's even run on turf, even farther if you want to go back to his most recent victory on the grass. This is the Zuma Beach. As a 2-year-old last year out at Santa Anita, he's going to come with an honest run. And again, this is only at 1 mile. The 1 1/4 miles, I'm a little bit skeptical about how that kick translates on the turf as opposed to the way that he was finishing in the Derby. But at the end of the day, this is a horse that he's shown he can run. He can handle some pretty good company on the turf. And for my money, it was one of the more underrated performances of Breeders' Cup weekend last year. He was hung wider than wide throughout, and he stayed on gamely, and that race has come back ultra live. We know that very well at this point. I just think he's a little bit of an interesting sort of, I don't want to call him an outsider, but an alternative to the logical horses.
The DeZormos are so good handling these kind of horses. This horse ran well enough in the Derby that you wouldn't have faulted them at all if they took a shot in either the Preakness or the Belmont. But I think they realize that they could run for 7 figures on the turf and could be very, very competitive. Interesting horse, Matt's pick, My Boy Jack. From Europe comes my top selection, the number 4 Hunting Horn, Aidan O'Brien, Ryan Moore. This is a horse that found last time out at Royal Ascot that firm ground is his friend. Let's go to that race. It was the Group 3 Hampton Court Stakes. This is a horse that gets a little bit excited in the paddock and post parade, so you might want to actually keep an eye on him there. He was a little bit washy going to the post, but he broke really well, put himself in a fine position, and then from the outside takes over turning into the stretch, and he kind of wins this very easily, pulling away from the field almost 5 lengths. It appears he might get the firm ground that he desires on Saturday. He's also going to get Lasix. This race at 1 1/4 miles. European entrants have done well in the Belmont Derby in the past. I think that Hunting Horn has found himself on firm turf, and if he doesn't get left at the gate like many European horses do, I think he's going to acquit himself quite well. That's Hunting Horn, the number 4 in the Belmont Derby. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment focuses on race 1 at Belmont on Saturday, a good field of well-bred 2-year-olds. Peter Thomas Fornatel has the latest news in the world of tournaments. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey guys, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate, an outstanding card on Saturday at Belmont, and when I opened it up, I was caught right away by this race, the first on the card, maiden 2-year-olds going 6 furlongs. Of the 8 in here, only 1 has a prior start, that being Social Paranoia, who was a close second on debut in May at Gulfstream for Todd Pletcher. Will probably go off favored, but I do think it's a wide open race with so many first-time starters, and 3 of them in here from familiar families that immediately caught my eye, and I'll take a closer look at them with you. We'll go in program order with them, starting with Road Home. This colt is by Quality Road, who of course has really been on the rise in recent years with runners like champions Abel Tasman and Caledonia Road, the latter an outstanding 2-year-old. Plenty of precocity in this family. Dam Sisty's Pride was grade 3 placed as a juvenile and is already the dam of a stakes placed winner. Sisty's Pride, a full sister to the dam of Rushing Fall. Of course, such a good 2-year-old with her campaign last year, including the win in the Breeders' Cup and Juvenile Fillies Turf. Broodmare Sire Forestry, in addition to Rushing Fall, represented in that regard by juvenile champion and Kentucky Derby winner Nyquist. Now, Mead, the second starter in the race for Pletcher, a $250,000 Saratoga yearling out of Defy Gravity, another very good 2-year-old who was a stakes winner at Laurel as a juvenile. Defy Gravity from an extremely productive family. She's a half to grade 1 winner Callback by Street Sense, the sire of Mead, so that one bred on a cross that works. This is the family of countless stakes horses, including Kentucky Derby winner Super Saver, Grade 1 winners Bluegrass Cat and Girolamo, Champion Rhythm. We could keep going for quite a while here. Mead, bred by Clear Sky Farm, which of course has produced standouts like Arrogate and Abel Tasman in recent years. I always take a close look when I see their name in the breeder line in the program because I know it's a quality family. Now, Florida-bred Unionizer is by Union Rags, himself a very good 2-year-old, a Grade 1 winner who continued on to win the Belmont Stakes. I think his runners are better going a little longer than this, but he has been very solid with his juveniles. Unionizer out of a winning mare by solid broodmare sire Unbridled Song. She's the dam of 2 winners from 4 starters to date, including the very useful Millet Say, a winner at 2. The second dam, also a stakes winner and producer. So a really strong and I think well-matched maiden event to kick off this strong card Saturday at Belmont. Don't forget that in addition to our analysis of the card here on Out of the Gate, video previews of all those Saturday stakes available on demand from DRF TV right here at video.drf.com.
Peter Thomas Fornatale back with you on Out of the Gate from the wilderness in Maine at my own personal little studio where I look forward later tonight to recording an episode of the DRF Players podcast with my co-host and fellow Out of the Gate participant, Jonathan Kinchin. Folks have asked, where's the show bed? Well, I'll tell you what, for the first time in several years, I've actually had a few pure days off in the last week. And as part of that, we decided to skip the last 2 podcasts. We will be back on the air tomorrow. You'll notice once again, repeating a hat. This time we've got the 10 Strike Racing hat on in celebration of Long On Value's win in the Grade 1 Highlander. I talked about how excited I was about this last week, how pleased I am that my friends at 10 Strike Racing have allowed me to be part of this wonderful partnership, and we got to taste Grade 1 success last weekend at Woodbine. It was fantastic. If you see the guy with the smug grin in the photo, that's JK. I wasn't able to make it all the way up there, but he did. He had a great time, fabulous afternoon hanging out with Clay Sanders and the rest of the crew. I was watching and screaming from the lake here in Maine. I think they heard me in New Hampshire. What a thrilling stretch drive that was, and how great, once again, to be on this ride with Long On Value, and can't wait to see what happens next. The Troy at Saratoga, maybe? Who knows? Would be a lot of fun. So that's the update on my life. I did get back into the game writing-wise today and penned a piece about the 4 major contests we have going on this weekend at Saratoga. Featured, I should say, more than major. Starting with the top one from a monetary perspective, we have an $8,500 package for the Del Mar Challenge, which is coming up July 28th and 29th, so right around the corner. Big deal for contest players out at Del Mar. You have your opportunity to win in by putting up $495, and 1 in 20 players will win that $8,000 Del Mar buy-in plus $500 in travel. Folks interested can also go ahead and contact Chris Barr at Del Mar about buying into that one directly. Shortly on the heels of the Del Mar contest, we're going to have the Saratoga, the 2 Saratoga Betting Challenge events. Those are going to be on Friday, August 10th, a $1,000 event, and on the 11th, the $2,000 4-Star Dave Challenge. Contest players should be descending from all over the world to Saratoga. Saratoga event used to be huge. Last couple of years, it's been smaller. I think it's going to go right back up the ladder in popularity this year with the first ever live bank contest on a weekend at Saratoga. You can win your way in on DRFT. That one, $410 to buy in, 1 in 10 get the money. Should be great. Also, an event for the World Championship of Handicapping, Grade 1 qualifier for that to check out, and a round 1 contest for the Keeneland Fall Challenge happening on one of the October Sundays. But if you're thinking ahead, you can start your journey to that event this weekend as well. Lots of good stuff happening. For all the details, check out tournaments.drf.com. For more from me and JK on this weekend's racing, check out the new edition of the DRF Players podcast. should be running live tomorrow at the usual time. We're going to record something tonight, send it to producers Craig and AJ. Hopefully that will debut at 11 and then be available wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, SoundCloud, and this is new on Spotify now, the DRF Players Podcast. All right, that's it for me from the woods. I'll be back with you from the Brooklyn Bunker when I see you next week for the podcast. However, I'm going to be over in England as well, but we'll be working in England, so we'll have an opportunity to stay in touch with the fans that way. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. Stay tuned for more on Out of the Gate.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for the Breeders' Cup Win and You're In event at Belmont on Stars and Stripes Saturday. That's the Grade 2 Belmont Sprint Championship. Obviously a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. For expanded stakes analysis and video previews of all the major graded stakes races this weekend, minus one or two, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. They should all be posted by Friday afternoon. Matt, the number 2, Whitmore. He's been good this year. All he needs is a little bit of pace.
Yeah, all he needs is a little bit of pace, and I think he might get that here on Saturday afternoon. I was a little bit concerned about distance for a horse like this, but the most recent start in the True North, I really can't argue with it. Okay, he didn't end up winning. Unfortunately, he got turned away by Imperial Hint, but we're going to take a look at the stretch run right now. I thought this was a good effort, guys. And again, if you think he's going to get a pretty good setup, he'll get an extra half furlong to work with on Saturday. Whitmore's the kind of horse that he makes a lot of sense. I don't know that I love him at what could be a short price, because I don't ever like to bet a dead closer coming off on a dirt race, especially a dirt sprint. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to knock what he's done throughout his career.
But he's very honest and he's very consistent, and that's saying a lot for Whitmore, who you would expect to give a good account of himself with a strong late run. Now, favorable outcome, Mike, he hasn't exactly been the most consistent horse in the world. He's shown flashes here and there. Where is he now in his form?
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. To me, this was just, I don't really have a lot to say about this race. This was just more the kind of race where, you know, I agree with Matt's take on Whitmore. I know he can win. He's a nice horse. I don't know. I don't really love him and don't want to bet him. Limousine Liberal, I sort of feel the same way about. I'll take a shot with somebody else at what should be a better price, maybe favorable outcome in that 4-to-1 range or so. I just want to take a shot with him. He's got a good post. We'll look at his most recent start. He's not going to wind up winning this race, but I think he runs pretty well here. I mean, he caught a sloppy track. Recruiting Ready, who's a fast horse on his best day, he was just the only speed in this race, and he just got absolutely loose on the lead. He did not have to go fast. You can see favorable outcome. I mean, he's trying real hard here. I like this performance from him. He just cannot get to a horse who had a big advantage on him early in this race. I thought this was, you know, one of the better efforts favorable outcome has run, and I guess if he can come back on Saturday, maybe run something like that, maybe this is the right spot for him.
Nice attack outside post position. Could sit a good trips tracking horses like Shaft of Light and I Love Lulu. Another horse that would benefit from a good pace, because I think he has the tactical speed to stay close, Matt, is your morning line favorite. That's the classy Limousine Liberal.
Yeah, and to me, that's sort of what the separator was for this entire race. I agree with Mike about favorable outcome. I agree what we were talking about earlier with Whitmore. But the fact that Limousine Liberal might be able to get the jump on each one of those horses, to me, that was the deal breaker and the thing that puts him over the top to me. His most recent start in the Met Mile, we're going to take a look at that run right now. Look, I'm not going to hold it against him that he got buried by two horses that are arguably two of the better older horses in training, MP Jersey and Mind Your Biscuits. I like the fact that, you know what, he's got a little bit of ability. He's got that tactical style. 7/8 of a mile is not going to be an issue for him. I know he's 4 for 9 overall. Belmont, you know, initially when they shipped him up here, I wasn't sure that he was going to really class up to this level. I think he fits in here pretty well. I don't love him, but I think he's the most likely winner of the race.
I agree with you. I'm going to take Limousine Liberal on top in the Belmont Sprint Championship as well. Mike and I talked about it a little bit in the Expanded Stakes preview. I thought he had a bit of an uncomfortable trip. He didn't break well, but he was fast enough stretching out to the mile to secure a good position in the second flight in between horses. But I thought he was in tight in between horses, leaving the back stretch all the way through the turn until we picked up the replay, and he was down towards the inside. All things considered, I thought he ran well at a distance that's a little bit too far for him, and I think a good trip is coming despite breaking from the inside post. I agree with Matt. I'm going to take Limousine Liberal in the Belmont Sprint Championship. We'll move from dirt to turf, but we'll stay at Belmont Park. The Belmont Oaks Invitational is next. Time to take a look at the field for the Grade 1 $1 million Belmont Oaks Invitational, going 1.25 miles on the inner turf, carded as race number 8 on Stars and Stripes Saturday. For expanded stakes previews of many of the weekend's graded stakes races, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We cover every horse in every race. Mike, significant form, a filly who did some really good work last year for Chad Brown, winning seasonal debut, beaten favorite last time out in the local prep. Your analysis of that race and her chances on Saturday.
I think she's, in a lot of ways, I think she's the horse to beat. This is a very good field of horses she's facing, but I think she might be the horse to beat in this race. She has not run a bad race yet for Chad Brown. We'll go back to the local prep to wonder again, her most recent start, where she was defeated as an odds-on favorite. They elected to turn La Signare, another horse she's going to face again here on Saturday. They elected to turn her loose on the lead early, and then they tried to run her down through the stretch, and you know what? They couldn't get her, but this is a good try from significant form. I think she ran a very nice race here. She just cannot get by this horse on the lead. You see right there, deep stretch, she had a shot at it, couldn't get by. I thought she ran well. If I have any knock on her at all in this race, it is only that she is probably the favorite in here, and this is a very, very good field of horses. I don't know if I want to bet her as the favorite in here, but I think she is the horse to beat.
I think she was just a little bit too conservatively ridden last time out, letting La Signare just walk on the lead, just really not giving that filly enough respect, and they paid the price. I think this time around, Matt, she might be able to go to the lead, and if the pace is hot, there's a filly coming from Southern California with credentials at a big price.
I think most people look at the filly coming in from Southern California called Paved and look at her and say she's the horse that you need to take note of. I'm more intrigued by Fatale Beret coming in here for Leonard Powell. You're supposed to draw a line through that most recent start because the saddle slipped and unfortunately Alonso Quinones had no control. If you go to the start 2 starts back, the one we're going to take a look at right now in the La Providencia, I tell you what, I thought there was a scenario where she just ran off the screen here. I love the way that she's got a little bit of a tactical gear. She's not totally going to get outrun. She's going to be relatively close, and the way that she finishes here, she comes home, gets that final 1/8 of a mile in 11-1, and I love the gallop out. To me, this is the kind of horse, she's a little bit dirty up on paper, and I feel like this 10 furlongs is going to be right in her wheelhouse. I think she's got a big chance at what should be a very good price.
She gave Paved a comprehensive beating in that race, so much so that she was favored over Paved in that subsequent outing, the race where you draw a line through with the saddle slip. She's got to be relaxed in the early portion of her races. Sometimes she pulls hard and moves a little bit too soon, but boy, I think you're right. She's dirtied up, and she's going to be a great price. Mike, La Signare took him gate to wire last time out. A lot of folks are going to say she's dressed up. Do you agree?
No, I don't think she's dressed up, but she did. I mean, there is no denying in the one again, and we'll look at it again, the replay. There's no denying that she had all the best of it in this race. She got right to the front here. She was able to control her own pace, and when significant form came for her on that second turn, she still had something in the tank here. You see her kick away again. This was a nice performance for this field. I like the way that she gets a little separation there, and then she digs in one final time at the end as significant form tries to catch her at the end, and she is clear under the wire. This is a good performance for a filly who has yet to run a poor race in her life. I like this performance for her. I think she's going to be fine at 1.25 miles, and she does not need the lead to run her best race. I'm going to go right back to her in here, although I realize she'll be a little bit of a shorter price this time.
I agree for the reasons, pretty much all the reasons that you mentioned. Her race 2 starts back at Keeneland, where she came from off of the pace, showed that she can rally from off it. She does not need an easy, uncontested lead like last time to be successful, and I don't think she's going to make the lead, but I think she'll be in a good stalking spot with a big chance to win it turning into the stretch. And I like the way she finished that race off. I think it really shows that 1.25 miles could be within her scope. I agree with Mike. I'll go with La Signare in the Belmont Oaks. JK, we know he's got a solid play of the day. He has one each and every week here on Out of the Gate. And David Aragona's Time Form U.S. Spotlight looks at not one, not two, but three of the major races on Stars and Stripes Saturday at Belmont. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. Awesome racing at Arlington Park and at Belmont Park with the Stars and Stripes. Obviously, DeVisidero is running. I'll talk about that on the podcast at Arlington Park. Excited to see him back and what looks to be going in the right direction in good form. 2-1 on the morning line. I'll go ahead and give you a hint now that I'm going to do some things built around him at Arlington Park. But for JK's Play of the Day, we're going to stick out at Belmont. A lot of great racing. Excited to see Mendelssohn on a fast dirt surface to start the pick 6 at Belmont. I believe in race 6, but I'm going to give you a double starting in race 9. You can throw that into your pick 5s or your pick 6s or pick 4s. Starting with the 9th race, the Suburban, 1.25 miles, almost a 1-turn mile. I think that Opportunity is going to be extremely tough in here. Dr. Door, another Baffert entry, is going to be sent to the front here. If he's not sent to the front, he's going to be aggressively ridden forward. They should run in front of him. Opportunity should have all the pace that he needs. It's a 1.25 miles, big swooping turns at Belmont. I think this is exactly what Opportunity has been looking for. He ran well in the 1.5 mile race in the Brooklyn on Belmont Day, and I think he's going to run well here at a 1.25 miles. I think Opportunity is sneaky good in this spot. 9-2 on the morning line. I'm going to try to make some money with him. Keep an eye out for Tappert. If you're interested in Tappert, maybe you want to include a little bit, but a majority of my play is going to go through Opportunity in the Suburban. And then you go on to the Belmont Derby. There's only 2 horses here that I need. One of them, the obvious one here for me, is Hawkish. I think Hawkish is extremely talented, has run some extremely good numbers, was lights out at the race at Penn last time. Looked really impressive there. Manny Franco's one of my favorite riders. He really is very aggressive, and he finishes, and he hustles, and he tries really hard. So that's always something that I like when I have a rider, and I think that Hawkish is going to be ridden to win in this race. And I think he's going to have a really good shot here, too. And then the second horse I'm going to use, the 3, Analyze It. Look, I understand that the last race in the Pennine Ridge, the horse seemed to get a little bit tired, a little bit late. I think that we've got Chad's attention. I think that the horse, not we, the horse, has Chad's attention, Jose's attention. I think that horse is going to be ridden a little bit differently. I think the horse will be ridden forward in this 1.25 mile race. I think the horse will have the ability to go possibly a little bit slower early. And be able to kind of quicken, be asked a little bit earlier in the race. He kind of put himself into the race last time, and I think Jose thought he was going to win for fun. I think this time now they know the horse could have distance limitations. I think he'll be encouraged along. I think he'll be put into the race, and I think that he could be extremely dangerous as a talented horse going 1.25 miles. And those are the 2 that I'm going to use on the back end of the double, the 3, Analyze It, and the 8, Hawkish. Good luck. We'll see you guys next week.
Hi, this is David Aragona with this week's Time Formula Spotlight. There's a ton of great racing on Saturday at Belmont Park for the Stars and Stripes card. We're going to try to take a look at 3 stakes races quickly. We're going to look at the 3 stakes races that are being run at 1.25 miles, 2 on turf, obviously, the Belmont Oaks and Belmont Derby, which go as races 8 and 10, and sandwiched between them the Suburban Handicap, which goes as race 9 at 1.25 miles on the dirt. We'll start with the Belmont Oaks, and I think you have to begin with Chad Brown's top contender, likely favorite, significant form. She lost her prep last time in the Wonder again, but she ran well that day. I question the tactics because they kind of took her off the pace where she had run well running on the lead in her prior start in her first prep, the Memories of Silver, and they sort of let her main rival, La Signari, just sort of get away on the front end. They gave significant form some ground to make up. Ultimately, though, she got there at the end of that race and just couldn't quite stay on even terms with La Signari. I didn't love the way significant form finished off that race, so I kind of wonder if she's going to really move forward going out to the 1.25 mile distance. We'll take a look at her main rival, La Signare, and I mean, she finished off the 1 mile and 1/8 strong last time. I know that she kind of had everything her own way up on the front end, but she seems like the sort of filly that can go on in distance. I loved her U.S. debut where she was closing late behind Toinette, who won the Edgewood next time out and is obviously also a major player in this race. But La Signare, she just seems like a filly that's really heading in the right direction and maybe is moving into top form. And I think that's important for these 3-year-old fillies who obviously have run some better races at shorter distances, and we're trying to see who can handle this test of stamina in the Belmont Oaks. There are other fillies to consider, obviously, like Toinette, who took advantage of circumstances last time when she beat Rushing Fallen Daddy as a legend. I wasn't her biggest fan, but she obviously has to be considered. The 2 fillies from California, I prefer Fatal Beret. who ran well two back, had her saddle slip last time. She has some ability. But I think the other horse you have to consider just based on class is the European shipper Athena for Aidan O'Brien. Now, it's worth noting that Aidan O'Brien, while he's had some success in this country overall, with fillies that he's rode over the past 5 years, he's just 1 for 31, a 3% win rate with a 47-cent ROI if you look at DRF Formulator stats. It just seems like he's taking a shot with a lot of the female horses he brings over as opposed to the colts that are better meant. And while this filly's kept good company and she's run well against some nice horses, if you look at the Timeform US Farm comments for her races, they're just not overwhelmingly positive. And I feel like this filly might just be taking a shot in a tough spot. So I'll use her underneath, but I mostly prefer La Signare in this race. Moving on to race 9, the Suburban. I guess we have to start the conversation with last year's Belmont Stakes winner, Tapwrit. I don't know if he's actually going to go off favored here because there are some other horses that have to take money, like Docker Door, who has some fast races out in California. But Tapwrit got his prep in last time. I don't know what to make of the fact that he lost that race and just didn't finish it off all that convincingly, but because it was just a prep and he's supposed to improve stretching out to the 1.25 mile distance, he still earned a respectable speed figure for it, and he's apparently training well coming into this race. So I respect Tapwrit, but he's going to be probably in the 3-1 to 7-2 range, and for just a little bit short in such a competitive race. I think it's important to take a pace projector for this because there is not a ton of signed on, and especially in these elongated route distances on dirt, you want to be aware if a horse can just sort of get away on the front end. The number 5 horse, Dr. Door, does have speed, but he has shown the stock. I believe 10 Diversify is a real threat to Wild. We obviously saw what he can do last year when he won the Jockey Club Gold Cup going this distance. He earned a spectacular Timeform US speed figure that day. He lost the Clark Handicap next time out, and he got 2018 campaign off to a lackluster start in the Charlestown. He just didn't seem to handle the course that eased. He got back on track with New York Breds last time, and it's worth noting in the left-hand corner of Timeform SPPs that blue color-coded race rating box that indicates the race was favoring closers that day. What really happened to Belmont was that it was just kind of a dead rail. You wanted to be outside. Diversify was with the flow of the race outside that day, and suddenly hold it against them. He only won that race by a nose over New York Breds, but the runner-up pat on the back, he's a solid horse, who's really improved this year, and Diversify, the key for him is stretching out in distance. I really think he's best going 1 1/8 quarter on the dirt. I liked his last workout. I just think he's heading into this race in top form, and he'll be in price because people will question his current condition coming into the race. So I'm taking a shot at Diversify, but you have to use Bob Baffert's pair, including Opportunity, who won well on Belmont Stakes Day in the Brooklyn, and the number 2 horse War Story coming out of the same race, who obviously gets the distance. Moving on to the final race, the Belmont Derby, the last of the stakes races at Belmont Park on Saturday, and it's a rematch between Analyze It and Catholic Boy. I think you have to focus on Analyze It, though, because while he lost the Pennine Ridge last time, I think it was more a case of him just getting goofy at the end of that race, and maybe Jose Ortiz riding him a bit too confidently, because you rarely see turf races run in fashion that the Pennine Ridge was, where they really just picked up the pace leaving the half-mile pole and basically turns into a sprint for the last 3/8 of a mile. Catholic Boy just kind of took advantage of Analyze It getting tired at the end of that race. It's fair to question Analyze It stretching out to 1 1/4 mile, but he seems like the main speed of this race because I doubt that they're going to ride Catholic Boy the same way given the circumstances, whereas last time was kind of a match race. This is a more competitive race, and Catholic Boy has sort of shown he can come from off the pace in the past. So I think Analyze It's the horse to beat, but there's a lot of quality at the top of this race, and there are other horses you have to consider, including Hawkish, who's trying to stretch out in distance. He's kind of regarded as a closer, but he's been pretty close to some faster paces in his races. So if he is within striking distance at the top of the stretch, I'm very afraid of Hawkish's late run. I think he's one you have to consider, as well as Aidan O'Brien's horse, Hunting Horn, who was very impressive winning the Hampton Court Stakes last time at Ascot. I know that happened, just over 2 weeks ago, but Aidan O'Brien has shown the ability to bring these horses back on short rest. Hunting Horn under 118 Timeform rating for that race, which puts him right on par with the top contenders in this race. And to me, I think you have to take this horse seriously. If you read the Timeform Farm comments for this horse, they're very positive, indicating that he might be a horse that could compete with the top 3-year-olds in Europe. So I'm primarily focusing on Analyze It, Hunting Horn, and Hawkish, and Catholic Boy sort of a backup. But I'm hoping to get one of my stronger opinions on the 2 other races, because I think this Belmont Derby is really wide open. So great stakes action on Saturday at Belmont. Hopefully we have a little bit of luck. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Time for our best bet segment. Matt Bernier, north of the border on Saturday. You're going to Woodbine.
Stakes action, race number 8, 2-year-olds in the My Deer. This is an interesting spot, I think, for a Southern Florida import going north of the border. The number 7 Entirely. She's 4-1 on the morning line. I thought her career debut was awesome. We're going to take a look at that right now. I understand it was on turf, and she's going to have to run on synthetic. But look how green she is, and she's going to absolutely put the boots to this field. It's worth noting the 5th place finisher of this day in this race came back to break her maiden in her next start with a 62 Beyer speed figure. I think Entirely, she's by point of entry. The additional distance should only be to her liking. I think Jonathan Thomas might have a promising 2-year-old on his hands.
Mike Beer, NYRA analyst, you've got something at Belmont Park on the Stars and Stripes undercard.
Yeah, not one of the stakes races, but race number 4, classified allowance on the turf, 1.25 miles. Shug McGahee has county court going in 1.25 miles in this race. I like this. This horse got off to a pretty promising start. Looked like he was figuring things out early on in his career. Unfortunately, he was injured. He missed the entirety of his 3-year-old campaign. He came back off a layoff, though, at Aqueduct on August 7th, and this is that race right here. 9 furlongs off a layoff that extended beyond a year, but he was ready for the added distance in this race. He just stayed on the outside the entire way in this race, and he stays on strongly at the end. Closes this field down, runs through the wire. I like this performance from him in his next start. They tried to go 1.25 miles with him, but he was in a much tougher spot that day. He didn't get the cleanest trip in the world. He was in against a horse named Charose, who went up to Woodbine and won a Grade 3 stakes race last weekend. This is a better spot for him. He's not facing those kinds of horses here. I think he will get the distance, and I think if he can just run his best race, this is a field he can beat. He's 6-1 on the line.
My best bet is at Monmouth Park, race number 9, number 5, Jersey Fresh. I'm going to try to beat the favorite in here. The favorite is a filly taking on the boys in start number 2. That's the number 3, Canucci, who's stretching out with a questionable pedigree and who blew a big late lead last time out. I just didn't like the way she finished up. I did like the way Jersey Fresh finished up his career debut on June the 23rd. We're going to take a look at that race right now. He's far back turning into the stretch. He broke slowly from the rail and was far behind, and this race is dominated up front by the winner, a 4-5 chalk trained by the red-hot Jason Service. The runner-up came back to win his next start with a 58 Beyer. Jersey Fresh is running at the end of this race. He's going to get up for 3rd. He's got a little bit of a distance pedigree. His dam is a half-sister to a stakes winner at 9 furlongs. And I don't like the favorite in here, and I don't really like many of the alternatives. I guess the number 2, Tirabashi, Jersey Fresh's uncoupled stablemate, to me is the horse that Jersey Fresh has to beat. He is the 3rd choice on the morning line at 7-2 for Eric Cancel, and I think this horse will improve second time out while stretching out from 6 furlongs to a mile. That's Jersey Fresh, the 5, in the 9th race at Monmouth Park on Saturday. We thank you so much for tuning in this week to Out of the Gate, and we urge you to keep an eye out for all of our offerings, DRF TV offerings on Twitter. Follow along at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority all weekend long, follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.